Hello and welcome to the Esmeralda video tutorial. The transcriptions you produce with the Esmeralda transcription tool will be interoperable for further processing with tools and data from different centers within the Clarin network. Clarin is an acronym for the Common Language Resources and Technology Infrastructure. This infrastructure aims at providing easy and sustainable access to digital language data for scholars in the humanities and social sciences. Further information on Esmeralda can be found at the Clarin D Center in Hamburg, the Hamburg Center for Language Corpora. This tutorial contains the basics of transcribing with the Esmeralda Partitur editor. All the examples given in this tutorial can be found on our homepage, www.esmeralda.org. This tutorial is divided into two parts. First, we'll look at the basics and the terminology, and then we'll go through a step-by-step introduction into how to create a transcription with Esmeralda. So, let's get started on some basics and the terminology. This is the user interface of the Partitur editor when you start the program or open a new transcription. This is what we call the transcription field, resembling a musical score. It's where we transcribe. The transcription field consists of a timeline and tiers. Right now there's only one tier because we haven't started transcribing yet. And then the tiers again consist of so-called events. In order to show you what this looks like with an actual transcription, I'll open the transcription file. To do this, I click on the yellow folder icon in the toolbar and choose the file Beckhams, with the ending EXB for Basic Esmeralda Transcription. Here you see a complete transcription, aligned with a media file. It consists of various transcription and annotation tiers, each referring to a speaker. On the left-hand side, there are the tier labels for the different tiers, and also event start and end lines, wherever an utterance ends or a change in speaker takes place. These event lines correspond to a certain point in the timeline above. These sections are so-called timeline items. The timeline items each indicate a time which refers to a time point in the audio or video file. When clicking on a timeline item, the corresponding time interval is selected in the oscillogram of the audio file. The beginning of the aligned interval is marked with a green line and the end with a red line. Now to the second part, how to create a transcription. In order to start, an audio or video file has to be added to the new transcription. To add such a file, click on the Assign Media File button in the toolbar. The dialog that opens assists in managing the media files for the current transcription. To add a file, click the Add button on the right. Choose a WAV file in order to have an oscillogram be displayed. And then click OK. Sometimes the oscillogram appears very small in size. In this case, it can be increased by simply dragging this line downwards. First, I'll show you the different player features for the audio player that are visible under the oscillogram. For the simple playback of the audio file at any point, click the play button.
And what comes to is your determination at all costs to actually succeed. I mean, is that a sort of a message that you hope comes across to kids? Because a lot of kids think that people just become famous overnight, don't they?
Yeah, I think that people...
By clicking the pause button, the playback is paused. The playback can be started at any point in the oscillogram.
When I was at school, I've always had it in my personality to want to succeed, even when it was, I want to do my homework right. But yeah, I mean, I'm one of these people, when someone kicks me, I...
By clicking stop, the playback is stopped. To play a specific part of the audio, select it by clicking into the oscillogram and dragging the mouse. Then click on the Play Selection button.
But yeah, I mean, I'm one of these people, you know, when someone...
If you want to change the beginning or the end of the selection, drag the mouse over the blue lines in the oscillogram and move them by clicking and dragging the mouse to the left or right. Very helpful features for the correction of selected items are the buttons Play Last Second of Selection,
me, you know, I...
Play Second After Selection, Play First Second of Selection, and Play Second Before Selection. Another important feature is the Loop Selection button that plays a selection repeatedly.
But yeah, I mean, I'm one of these people, you know, when someone kicks me, you know, I... But yeah, I mean, I'm one of these people, you know, when someone kicks me, you know, I... But yeah, I mean, I'm one of these people, you know...
Before starting to transcribe, create a speaker table and enter all speakers of the audio file whose utterances you would like to transcribe. For this, click on the speaker icon in the toolbar, which opens the dialog Edit Speaker Table. Start by entering an abbreviation for the first speaker. In this case, I use PAR for the talk show host Michael Parkinson. To add metadata for the speakers, you can use as many free attribute value pairs as needed. In order to do this, click the Add Attribute button and enter the corresponding values. In this example, I use the attribute first name and the value Michael, and the attribute last name with the value Parkinson. To add more speakers, click the Add Speaker button and enter another speaker's abbreviation. I use VIC for Victoria Beckham, sex female. Another speaker is David Beckham, for whom I use the abbreviation DAV, sex male. Then click OK. After having compiled the speaker table, you need to add transcription tiers for the speakers. Click on the corresponding icon in the icon bar. In the dialog that opens, choose the corresponding speaker in the speaker field, and then click OK. Repeat these steps for all the speakers you want to transcribe. The basic settings do not need to be changed, only change the speaker. Now you can start transcribing. The timeline shows only one interval so far that begins at 0 seconds and ends at the end of the recording at 4 minutes and 25 seconds. The last red timeline item marks the end of the timeline. To start transcribing, select the first part of the audio signal in the oscillogram. Please note that the selection boundaries in the oscillogram are still blue.
And what comes to is your determination.
For the transcription of the text, you can use one of these two buttons, Add Event, for inserting a new event, or Append Interval, for adding a new event after an existing event that has already been transcribed. For the transcription of the first event, always choose Add Event. Assign the corresponding tier in the dialog that opens. Now, there are two more timeline items in the timeline. The first indicates the starting time of the event. The second indicates the end time of the event. Note that now, as this part has been aligned, the beginning of the selection in the oscillogram is green, and the end is red. Now you only need to enter the text. I'm transcribing according to the HIAT conventions. The last character in each event has to be a space. To complete the entry, hit Enter. To continue transcribing the next utterance of the speaker, click Append Interval, this time to add an interval immediately after the event that you've already transcribed. The timeline item that is added after the last one is an interval of 2 seconds and aligned with the audio signal.
At all costs to actually...
As you could hear, the automatically generated selection is of course not always exactly correspondent to the length of the utterance you want to transcribe, i.e., at all costs to actually To correct the alignment, the red ending line of the selection in the oscillogram has to be adjusted.
At all costs to actually succeed.
Please note that when changing the selection in the oscillogram, the time point in the timeline is also being corrected. After having adjusted the interval, you can transcribe in the corresponding tier. Add a space after the last character and hit Enter. As long as the speakers take turns, you can continue transcribing by adding new intervals. However, when the utterances of the speakers overlap, it is more complex. As in this case.
At all costs to actually succeed. I mean, is...
The interval not only contains the utterance of one speaker, but the overlapping utterances of two. This means that there is one event within another already existing event.
At all costs.
Select the corresponding part in the oscillogram, adjust the beginning or end, and then click the button Add Event. Now select the corresponding tier and transcribe in the event that has been created. Finally, you have to set the event lines in the tier above to indicate the speaker change. To do this, click into the corresponding position in the text, then click the Split button in the toolbar. If, as in this case, there are more than one possible timeline items, you need to choose the corresponding one in the dialog and hit OK. Repeat this procedure at the end of the overlapping sequence. Now continue transcribing the next utterance by clicking Append Interval.
I mean, is that a sort of a message that you hope?
Here the speakers overlap once more. This time we set an interval for the simultaneously speaking part. Adjust the interval line to the part where a speaker speaks alone again. And type in the text for each speaker in the corresponding tiers. Then we continue transcribing the single utterance by clicking Append Interval.
Is that a sort of a message that you hope comes?
Adjusting the line in the oscillogram.
Is that a sort of a message that you hope comes across to kids?
And entering the text. Now we're almost at the end of our tutorial. To conclude, I'm going to show you the alignment by selecting one and more timeline items and clicking the Play Selection button.
I mean, is that a sort of a message that you hope comes across to kids? I mean, is that a sort of a message that you hope comes across to kids?
At the end, the transcription needs to be saved. Click on the disk icon in the toolbar. Enter a file name. And click Save. This is the end of the Xmeralda tutorial. All steps and example files described and used here can also be found under Help and Documentation on our website www.xmeralda.org.